pleasure, as always, anytime you ask me to do a job, I like to help you out because you are so helpful as well. And it's a pity we have more members here tonight because I think parliamentary procedure is very, very important. And I know myself from feedback I get from various people and members of Toastmasters in relation to issues they have at club levels in relation to decisions being taken in an improper manner. And a basic understanding of parliamentary procedure by, number one, the presiding officer, who is the president normally. Another name for that is chairperson. It's a vital, vital role. And I think it's important that you have a basic knowledge of parliamentary procedure to conduct productive meetings. And tonight, I hope to cover a lot of the basic stuff, and maybe our two members here tonight, maybe if you have any questions, I would like you to put them in chat there. Is there anything you would like me to cover tonight? Just let me know and I can cover that in detail as well. So I'm going to share the screen with you, and I want you to interact, and maybe you can, if there's no background noise, you can unmute yourselves and at any time come in and ask me a question. I may not see you with sharing the screen, but just ask the question. Yeah, okay. So can you see my slide? All good. So parliamentary procedure, the successful meetings, really, and this is the objective of tonight's meeting. And you see there's 7 or 8 main headings.
Larry, we see the other, not the presentation. Oh, yeah. We see the other screen.
Okay, sorry now. Okay. Okay. So we have there are the main objectives, and I think as I said earlier, a good understanding of the basics of parliamentary procedure. And for any meeting, pre-meeting preparation is key to a successful meeting. If you arrive on the day and you have no preparation done, you will be caught offside. And as a chairperson, if you have the basic knowledge, you will chair a meeting successfully and confidently. I think that is important. If you're unsure of the rules, you will be found out by the attendees and you could be under pressure. So why put yourself under pressure when you can learn the basics and chair with confidence? And as a delegate in at a meeting, I think it's good to have an understanding of parliamentary procedure so that you can participate successfully. There's no point sitting at a meeting and wondering, what do I do? How do I raise a motion? What's all this talk about? About deferring, about adjourning, about point of information. So we'll look at that later on. We'll also have a look at motions, understanding motions and what they mean and how they are put forward. And I think minute taking is important as well in relation to meetings. I've seen minute taking that goes on for pages and pages, and there's no need. You should have any minutes of any meeting. One A4 page should suffice. And dealing with difficult situations, I think this is a very important one. You're in the chair, there's difficult situations arising. How do you handle them? You'll get one person maybe that might test your patience and how to handle that person in a competent and calm manner. I think that is crucial. So there, the definition of parliamentary procedure, and I think that is important. That everyone that attends a meeting is heard, and I think that is crucial. Sometimes the quiet person may never get to say or add to the meeting. So you as chairperson, it's important that you identify these people, and maybe there's ways of getting them to talk and make a contribution. because sometimes I have very important things to say, but maybe too shy. So you can always talk to them before a meeting and maybe suss them out, and then you can maybe bring them around to speak at a meeting. And there are 4 key principles of parliamentary procedure. And I think in all walks of life, justice and courtesy is important. So why shouldn't it be the same in a meeting? We're all equal. You shouldn't treat anybody differently. Just because somebody is high up in the organization, they shouldn't get any preferential treatment over the person that's an ordinary member on the ground. I've been at meetings where there's 2 or 3 things being discussed at one time. You'll get no business done that way. So one thing at a time, one day at a time, as they say, as the song goes. And when you make any decision at a meeting, then of course the majority rules, but I mean the minority have a right to be heard. That is very, very important. You might have very strong opinions on an issue, and the members there may dominate the meeting, but it's important that you get the minority. And sometimes when a person against something speaks up, they may have a good idea, and that's where a motion could be amended. The person that's making the motion mightn't have thought of that, so somebody that may be against something could have a very, very important point. And that's why we have motions that can be amended. So when do we use parliamentary procedure? Every meeting you go to. So you can see the list of meetings there. So as a VPE, Lizel, you'll be at your club meeting. You'll be at a club officer meeting. I hope your club will be holding club officer meetings at least once every 6 weeks throughout the term. You should also be getting a call up to area council meetings, and if you're not, I would be getting on to the area director. You will also attend the district council meeting along with the president. And of course, in the outside world, in your own career or in your local community, you may be asked to be a chairperson or be a member of a committee. So it's good. We join Toastmasters to learn about every issue. It's not just leadership and communication. Parliamentary procedure is also part of that. Any questions so far? All good. So I think if you want to learn a bit more about how to run meetings, I think one place you should go to, and every member should be given the club constitution to read. It's a basic, easy to read a booklet on how to run your clubs, the role of each person, how to run meetings, etc. So I would suggest that it is read by at least the officers, but I think every member should look at it too. You have your club leadership handbook as well. That can be got, and we'll have a look at that later. The governing documents also, and I think, Britt, you will be looking at them for your role as parliamentarian. It's important that you check them out and see what you have to do throughout the year. And here we are attending training, so it's important you attend club officer training, and that's where you learn. Some people think they know it all. I was at a club officer training this year in D71. Now I have a lot of knowledge of Toastmasters, but I learned one thing this year that I didn't know before. And I'm a member since 2007. So you'll always pick something up. And seek help and advice. I think don't try to skim it or rim it, as I say back here. Don't try to say you know something and you don't. If you don't, just say, look, I'll check that out and I'll get back to you. So seek help and advice. Don't be afraid to ask others. That's how I learned, and I would expect others to ask me if they didn't know. So there's a club constitution, a quote from it, and you see there now what they're on about parliamentary procedure. It's on page 2 of the Constitution. So it's mentioned in there that we must know a bit more about the procedure. And there is another mention of it. It's mentioned many a time in the Constitution, but here it is again. Maybe appointed at each meeting by the club president. So it's a good chance to practice the procedures. Now, I think over the years, we all have issues at meetings, and maybe I would ask you, whoever wants to come in, what's your biggest gripe in relation to meetings? Faisal?
Just the question again, Larry?
What annoys you when you attend meetings? What are the big turn-offs? What do you dislike about meetings?
For me, it is that it appears that everybody doesn't really know how to do the go through. And this includes myself. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
I don't really know the parliamentary. I always hear about Robert's rules and that we need. I've been involved in a motion situation, and but that was done with senior DTMs that knew how it was being done. So they were guiding the club in those meetings and objecting to when things were being done incorrectly.
Okay.
But it was too few. So I think for me it is just about the knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
I think knowledge needs to be increased and awareness more. So
okay. Britt, thank you. Britt, when you attend meetings, what are the big turn-offs? Not just about knowing the rules.
Well, first of all, was there a proper invitation? Is there an agenda? Are the people coming on time and also staying through the meeting and being, let's say, with the meeting? So sometimes you also have people who are sitting in the room, but then actually working with the mobile phone instead of really going there. And then, of course, well, you have to make sure that you get decision making, because not only in the meeting but also afterwards with the minutes you have a chance to follow up whether the points that you have decided are really done properly or not. And all this kind of stuff I have seen not happening correctly, I would say. Not at the same time, luckily, but within and without outside Toastmasters,
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Elena, have you any gripes? Just one or two quick ones?
Well, people don't know how to speak and when to speak. This is one thing. And a second one is handling disagreements.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to give you a list of mine. Long-winded meetings, no structure, lack of regular meetings, and as Britt said, lack of notice maybe of meetings, lack of information, maybe people keeping information to themselves between a few. There's secrecy between just a few, and I see that at some meetings. And all the information is not put out there to everybody. You have control then there as well, and I often went to a meeting, no agenda at all. So how do you expect to get business done? And some people are never consulted. So we'll look at different ways around a lot of them, how they can be avoided. They're some of my gripes over the years. And I think it's not healthy. That's why you'd be wondering why people don't turn up to meetings then. If they see that going on, they'll stay away. If you want to encourage them to come along, you will try and avoid all of them. So there we are. if you want to get people in and stay for the meeting, there's your list. So for a meeting, I think if you're having a meeting, a month's notice is good. And for it, you'll be involved in that. You'll see that for DEC meetings and council meetings, you must give a month's notice minimum. And I think that's important. People will be ready then for the meeting. They have plenty of time to mark their calendar and come along. We talk about the agenda. I think the agenda is very important. What are you going to do during the meeting? Get it out there in advance, 2 weeks. And don't be afraid to ask people, have they any ideas or issues they want to put on the agenda? Be inclusive of all. Now we're talking about disagreements and too many people talking at one time. A code of conduct is no harm, especially in bigger meetings. What are your rules in relation to speaking time? People cutting in on each other. So it's important that you lay out at the start of your meeting. For motions, you may be asked to speak once or twice. It depends on the size of the meeting, the time you have laid out, etc. So if you lay out the code of conduct earlier on, and I think the respect and dignity and all of that goes with it should be mentioned. So if somebody is out of control during the meeting, you can refer to the code of conduct. Another thing I think is important is your minutes, the draft minutes sent out before the meeting that's coming up. Minutes should be sent out in a timely fashion. They should be done up within a week of the meeting and sent out in draft format. So people have time then to have a look at them to make sure that they are correct. If you don't send them out maybe for 4 or 5 weeks, people might have forgotten what happened. So how do you expect them to correct the minutes if you don't send them out on time? I know one particular secretary, not in Toastmasters, outside of Toastmasters. I was chairperson and I was on to him to send out minutes in time, but he had another agenda. He would leave it to the last minute. And as a result, people forgot what was discussed. So we had to get that changed. And we got him out of his position as well at the same time. Time, I have time in there in respect. Each of us come to a meeting and you have maybe an hour. If you say the meeting is going to last an hour and it goes on for 2 hours, what's going to happen? Britt, you can leave your mics on there.
The important people are only coming into the meeting room after 1 hour and 45 minutes to get a kind of the condensed version of what was discussed and to take the decision and then leave again.
Will they come back the next day? They may not. If it goes on for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. I was at a meeting there lately now.
Well, it might be that they are coming back, but again, only after 1 hour and 45 minutes, although the meeting was only set for 1 hour.
I was at a meeting recently and it was set out for 45 minutes and there was a motion to be voted on. And the chair of the meeting didn't get around to it in time and people had to leave. There was 2 people had to go. That was disrespectful to them. There is a way around that, and I'll come to that later. And as a chair of a meeting, you have to be firm but fair. If things are not going to your liking, just lay down the rules. Be firm and fair with everybody. And I think it's important to be impartial. You have to sum up what is being discussed, especially with emotion. You take both sides, the view from those for and against, and you lay it out on the table then before the vote is taken. No need for you as chairperson to vote, unless you really have to. So don't show your hand, stay impartial. And the majority, we spoke about this here, about the minority being heard, very important. This is something also happens, you're talking about a subject and then somebody pipes up and they start talking about something totally unrelated. That is a big turn off for people. And when you finish a meeting, then set a date for your next meeting. I think that is important. So everybody marks their calendar there, or diary, and right, we're meeting in 4 weeks' time again. Because if you leave a meeting without setting a date, next thing 3 or 4 weeks are gone by and no time. So we discussed issues that arise and difficulties. So these are very important. Your agenda, well laid out. A quorum now is another thing you have to consider. So have you got a quorum at your meeting? For a club meeting, it's greater than half. If you haven't got a quorum, you cannot do business. The same for your area meeting, council meeting, is same for officers' meetings. However, there is one exception to this, and that is a district council meeting. If you have no quorum, you can still carry on with the business. But you must get it ratified by sending it, the decision taken out to each club for ratification. So that is the only time a quorum, if you haven't got a quorum at the meeting, you can continue with business. For a DEC meeting, you must have a quorum as well. So managing time, I think that is important. So you should be able to gauge what's on the agenda and the amount of time you're going to allocate. Now, you've seen this district council meetings, and we're in our own district here, they go on for three plus hours. I think that's way too long. So we're in discussion this year in relation to reducing the time. And there's ways around that, and it will be decided to cut it down. How do you expect people to sit through a meeting for 3 hours? They're not committed. We discussed this. I think this is very important. Everybody should be included. Don't leave somebody out in the cold, or they may feel left out in the cold. You mightn't think it, but people, everyone, we all think differently. Somebody that's not being included, they may feel isolated. So it's important that you keep a good chairperson will always, or should, know their members, know the people around the table. And I think this is important too for club officer meetings. I think it's important at the beginning, maybe once a month. Actually, at my own club, last year, we didn't have regular club officer meetings. So I put forward a motion at our AGM that we have club officer meetings at least once every 6 weeks. So that's written into our constitution now, the addendum. So there's no getting away from that. So who can attend? I think that's also important. And for our club meetings, it's those that can vote are active members. All members can attend, but who can vote? Active members only. So an active member is defined as someone that's regularly turning up to meetings. It's in the club constitution how it. So it's up to each club to decide who is active and who is not. So for the club officers, they're the people that are appointed at the beginning of the year and submitted to Toastmasters headquarters. For a DEC meeting, you have the area and division directors, and then you also have the district leadership team. Then for your district council meetings, you have the president and the VPEs and the area directors, divisional directors, and the DLTs. So it's important to know who can attend. And for meetings, if you have to register, you must be registered, especially for council meetings. Usually an invitation is sent out well in advance, and you have to register for the meeting. For your club meeting, no need for that. Now, you're a chairperson of a meeting. What characteristics do you need? I think there's a good. If you have even 5 or 6 of them, you'll be well equipped to running a competent, successful meeting. A sense of humor, I think, is very important. Sometimes a meeting might be a bit dreary and you have to liven it up. So don't be afraid. Okay, parliamentary procedure is very strict in relation to rules and that, but you can add your own little spice to it. You're not really deviating from the procedures. So a sense of humor now and again, and you'll always get it at meetings, and there's times when you can introduce it, but don't introduce something that's totally way off the mark. I think as a chair, common sense approach is important. Okay, we have all these rules and regulations, but sometimes a bit of common sense is no harm either. And we talk about inclusiveness, so being fair to everybody. Have you good self-control and poise? The meeting is getting out of control. The rafters are being raised with the shouting. People cutting across each other. You as chair stand up and start shouting and roaring. Does that help? No, you're going to have mayhem. So I think good poise and good control is important. And of course, knowledge of the procedures. You're well on your way then. And lead by example. So them two could come in together there. If you're calm and collected, then I think that will filter through to everybody else. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. It's all summed up there in why we have parliamentary law. Now, this is one I come across a fair bit. Decisions being taken by club officers. So that's a regular meeting of this club, which shall include any business meeting of the active. We're talking about active individual members. So I think active is important there. And that is who can call the various meetings. So active is important. So you come to your annual general meeting and you're running for president and there's 5 inactive members, and you want to get elected, you go along and ask them to come along. Give me your vote. And they might be great buddies of yours. So that's why I think active is in there. They cannot come along and vote. So I think I'm sure it makes sense really. If you're not active, you're not contributing to the club. So I think active is important there. So you need a majority of active individual members constitute a quorum. You have 1 vote, no voting by proxy at a club meeting. Of course, we have the international business meeting in the Bahamas now at the moment. So as club secretary or president, there's proxy allowed, you can pass your votes on to your district director to cast them for you or cast them yourselves.
Larry, quick question about the quorum. Is that, well, I think I heard something about differences, whether you have, let's say, online meeting and let's say personal meeting or hybrid meeting, how a quorum counts.
Yeah.
Is that right?
The hybrid, for hybrid meeting, well, they're all the same really. For a hybrid meeting now, for the district council meeting, it's 2/3. It's 2/3 of the clubs. 2/3, I think. Well, I'll double check that one for you.
That would be brilliant, because I remember from last year when I was the credentials chair, it was that there had to be 1/3 of the clubs.
1/3, that's 1/3,
But I think it was really there. You could, for example, just take the numbers from the registrations, because it was an online meeting, but that it's somehow different Here I'm really swimming, yeah. So when you have a hybrid meeting or in-person meeting, that you really have to follow through when people are coming or leaving, and whether you have really at all the time the quorum or something like that. So if you can enlighten a little bit more, that would be really helpful. I know that it's not so much about the club meeting, but
you're right there. The district council meeting, it's 1/3 of registered clubs in good standing, and that means 2 votes per club. Before this, both the president and VP had to attend to cast a vote, but now the president could attend and cast 2 votes for the club. And there was an issue in relation to registry. Once you're registered, it was a given that you had a quorum if you reached the set criteria. But during a meeting, you must have a quorum in attendance as well, whether it is online or in person.
So it's kind of, you have to make sure that everybody is really in the room or while voting, or what does it mean?
Everyone, if you're coming to a vote, you must have a quorum present for business to be ratified there at the meeting. Now, how do you, is somebody watching that all the time? I remember being at a district council meeting and it was raised by one person that we were gone below quorum. Now, how far back did it happen? We didn't know. So we had to get people back into the room. I will discuss that again with you, the detail in relation to that at another time. You can contact me on that one, and we can have a discussion on it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Larry.
Now, this is important. Decision ratification. There's some decisions being made at club level and members not being consulted. I know in one occasion where there was money spent by a president and he sent in a receipt for the money, and it was a substantial amount, but it was never ratified by the club. I've seen club officers taking actions in relation to membership charges and sending it out in a WhatsApp group. This is your charge for the year. No, you don't do that. Any decision of the club executive committee which this club fails to ratify shall be null and void. So all actions of the club executive committee shall be submitted to this club at the next business meeting for ratification. So if you're a club officer and you're attending meetings and your club is officer meetings and you come up with decisions that are, you must get them ratified at your next club meeting. Do not proceed or you'll cause trouble. Some member mightn't even say object to it, but you may not have them back next year. You might say, look, I didn't like that.